To Boro Fan TV and the Monday Night Show with me, James Hutchinson. Boro fans, the past week hasn't been the greatest for us. Home games with Fulham and Hull at the Riverside have seen a 0 points return. Leaves Boro now out the playoff places in 8th position, but still only 3 points away from a top 6 place. Are you writing off Boro's chances of being in the end of season playoffs, or do you think it's still all up for grabs, Boro fans? Let us know on tonight's show. Joining me to look back at those 2 games and ahead to a crucial Easter programme with games against Bournemouth and Huddersfield Town is Tony Guest. Welcome to the show again, Tony.
Evening, James.
Great to see you again, mate. Great to see you, pal. And as always, Boro fans, we'd love to hear your thoughts and views. So get involved. It's your show. Let us know what you think after those 2 games at the Riverside and what you're hoping to see in the Easter matches. And before we get on with the show, Tony, I think it was on Friday or Saturday morning, Neil Warnock announced his retirement from football. Is there anything you'd like to say about our previous Boro manager?
Hope he enjoys it. No, on a serious note, he came in and done what he had to do. You know, he took over from Woodgate when we were really struggling during the pandemic. You know, personally, I felt obviously Woodgate didn't have no contact with his players, but I felt with the run that we'd had before the pandemic started, then obviously shutting down, they give Woodgate a chance to recharge the batteries and get the players in a different frame of mind, and then getting battered 3-0 off Swansea, we were absolutely down and out. We were down and out, and thank God Warnock came in and rescued us, kept us up. But I think we all got caught up in the Warnock hype. Obviously, with him having 8 promotions under his belt, we thought he was going to work his magic here, but it was quite strange, James, that we kept him for the start of this season, especially when he said he was going to go at the end of the season anyway. And I think that was shown by the lack of interest the club showed in the transfer window, which shut in September. You know, with players that we brought in Lumley for free. Everyone was for nothing. Like you say, we've got one there that we've never seen, Amayobi. Yeah. You know what I mean? Never seen him. He's never even been mentioned. So, yeah, at the end of it, I was glad to see the back of him, James. You know, but he done what he done what he was paid for, and I dare say he was paid quite handsomely for keeping us up. So, yeah, I hope he enjoys his retirement. But
yeah. And at the end of the day, Tony, I think he deserves a lot of credit for, I think it's 40 years in club management he's put it all together. And I think the game will be a little bit fuller without him, won't it?
Definitely, like you say, the referees are going to be a lot happier not having him backing at them, you know, for 90 minutes and every game that he was in charge of. But yeah, like you say, he's got a great reputation within the game. 40 years as a manager takes some dough, and he holds a record now for the most games, you know, as a manager. So, like you say, 8 promotions, absolutely fantastic to do that, you know, with different clubs as well. Absolutely fantastic. But he even admitted he went up with Cardiff when they had no right to go up. So, and they were one of the worst teams in the league that year for me. I remember going down to Cardiff Stadium that day when they beat us 1-0, and I've never swore so much in my life. We were dreadful, they were worse, and they beat us 1-0. I think it was 1-0.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Well, Tony, we'll bring it up to speed and bring it up to date now and talk about the last 2 home matches, which haven't been the greatest. We'll rewind first to last Wednesday and the visit of the league leaders, Fulham to the Riverside. What were your thoughts, Tony, in terms of the lineup for that game? Because there was 4 changes to the team that won at Peterborough the previous Saturday. I mean, Jones was out, which turned out to be due to illness. We had Taylor in, Peltier in. What did you make of the side that Chris Wilder set up with against Fulham?
Outside, I looked at it as if he was picking a team, you know, to rest players for the whole game. I think he looked at the Fulham game as a free hit, if you like, James. You know what I mean? Fulham are flying high. You know, we've got a decent home record. Balogun had been away with England. Rest a few players. To get them ready for the weekend. But we for me, Watmore is an impact player. We shouldn't be starting with Watmore at the moment. You know what I mean? And if I was going to rest anyone, I'd have still left Sporer on the bench and I'd have started with Coburn to see what he can offer over 90 minutes. But like you say, it was a surprise. But after watching the first half, they dominated the ball, James. We couldn't get the ball off them at times during the first half. But they never hurt us. We were always comfortable in or out of possession. We just didn't have, like Wilder said, we just weren't brave enough while in possession of the ball to hurt them. You know what I mean? But so, yeah, it was, strange decisions. But
I mean, it could be. Sorry, Tony. I was just going to say it could be argued. I thought actually, for all we didn't hurt Fulham very much in the first half, I thought Peltier and Taylor did their jobs in that they sort of like shackled Wilson and Carvalho. And I thought they were very quiet. So I think they did that job. So it was almost as though Wilder's plan worked, because in the second half, we stepped it up and I thought we were the better team in the second 45.
Well, like you say, Wilson was non-existent the first half. The big fella up front, I think he had one chance the first half, which was a bit tame, which Lumley saved. Yeah, I think they've done a good job. Both of them were coming in, but obviously it stunted us because we had nothing going forward down the flanks, James, with two of our older members of the squad on the flanks, if you like. You know what I mean? So, but like you said, it changed at half-time and it was a totally different game, and just the sucker punch, the movement by Mitrovic for the free kick. We just went to sleep. His movement was absolutely fantastic. The run he made to get on the end of the free kick. But Wilder's criticised Crooks for giving away the free kick going to ground. You know what I mean? So we were just caught on the up. And if there was one man going to score, it was going to be him.
Yeah. I mean, Tony, bear in mind the quality that Fulham have. Is it even more disappointing to get beat by a goal from a set piece?
Definitely the way we defend as well. Do you know what I mean? I thought Dale was going to struggle at, first 5-10 minutes of the game, but it was a good old battle. I don't think there's many games where Mitrovic has gone down with cramp like he did against us. You know what I mean? So it showed you he put a shift in. Dale was good, but like you say, to go down to a set piece, and a set piece that was, quite easy to defend, and it was just, and it was right in front of me. You could just see once that ball was in the air, there was only one man going to get it, and no one followed him. He shouldn't have been allowed to go on his own.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Chris, sorry, Tony. Chris Sykes just makes a point. He says it's a reoccurring thing that we concede from corners and free kicks, and this isn't just something that's exclusively happened in the last few months. It seems we've gone on for quite a while, this as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like you say, once the doubt sets in with crosses coming in, it's gonna, like you say, it needs a complete overhaul to get it stopped. You know what I mean? So yeah, we've conceded far too many from set pieces and corners, and even after when we think we've cleared our lines from crosses and set pieces, it always seems to come back and haunt us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't remember what game it was where, we cleared 2 or 3 crosses. It was a game a couple of weeks ago, and we were only getting as far as the edge of the box, and you just knew it was going to come back in and hurt us. You know what I mean? Might have been the Sheffield United game, James, if I think right.
Yeah, I think it was the second or third goal. Yeah. And
I
mean, Tony, the frustration from letting that goal in, that only intensified more in the last 5 minutes, because we had 2 golden opportunities to take something from the game, didn't we?
Like you say, he brought Coburn on, and like you say, Sporer. I think there was 3. Sporer missed a good chance. Coburn missed a good chance, and then obviously Watmore missing one right at the death. So that's what's going to hurt us more, Lumley's mistakes or missed chances at the other end, James, and I think it's the missed chances at the moment more than Lumley's mistakes that's going to cost us.
David Richardson's got in touch with us on the show. Hope you're well, Dave, and he said we'll obviously talk about Isaiah Jones. We've missed him in the last 2 games. David clearly doesn't rate Aaron Connolly, and he's saying start Josh and Dunk for me. Even Spore, I thought, would have offered more in the way of goals. And Tony, that's the thing at the minute. The Fulham game, we had Watmore and Spore up front for that game. They replaced Balogun and Connolly. Did that surprise you? And in fairness, now, I mean, we're jumping ahead a little bit. On Saturday, we went back to Connolly and Balogun, 2 home games, no goals, and very little really from the forwards in both matches.
Especially when you were reading on social media before the Fulham game that people saying, have we give up on Spore? Are we going to see him again? You know what I mean? And then next thing, he's starting against top of the league. So, yeah, it was a massive shock to see Spore brought straight back in. But I think he's done that for a few weeks now, James, hasn't he? He did start doing it where he was starting with Watmore and Spore, then Balogun and Connolly. Then we've had a run where it was just Balogun and Connolly, which was, like you say, that was a shock where, you know, when he brought Spore and Watmore in to start. So just as you thought you were working Wilder out, he likes to start with a settled 11. Things start to change.
Yeah. I think all the forwards in their own way have their own merits. But do you think the issue is not just the strikers, but maybe the service or the quality of service they're getting as well, Tony?
Well, like you say, we're going to talk about Saturday, but I think with Jones down the right-hand side and the way Tav's been playing since Christmas, I think the service they've been getting has been first class. And it's up to them to have the desire to get in that 6-yard box, to put their head on it, you know, the shoulder on it, the backside on it, just to get the ball over the line. But we just never seem to get anybody in that 6-yard box when the ball's flashing across the front of the goal.
Yeah, Darren Miller's got in touch with us as well, and he's another one that's singling out Aaron Connolly for a bit of criticism, saying he offers now how he starts games beyond me. Obviously, we'll talk about Joe Lumley later on in the show with regards to what happened against Hull. But on the flip side, you've got David Olsen who's saying, unlike most people, I think Connolly will come good. The guy's had a fair few goals disallowed, in fairness, since he joined us. And in a way, I don't think you can criticise him for his work rate. He runs about a lot, but people will say, well, that's the basic you expect from a footballer. When he pulls on your team shirt, they'll run about and put a bit of effort in. But Tony, what would be your first choice strike partnership if you're going to go with 2? What would the 2 be that you pick at this current time?
You know what? I'd definitely give what's left 7 games. I think we've got. He's got to pull a fast one, and he's got to start and surprise a few teams. Now I think he's got to start with Coburn and Balogun. Now, you know what I mean. The kid's young, the kid's hungry. You know, he's from round here. He's a local lad, and you know he wants to put it in for the Boro. And I think it's time to give the kid a chance because he's tried everything else. Like you say, we've 2 games and we've drew 2 blanks again at home, which I thought was a thing of the past. And you know the chances were there against Fulham and they weren't taken. So you're only as good as your last match, James. And like you say, these managers, past and present, you know, you don't get as many chances as you used to years ago with the size of these squads. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've got to say he's got to give Coburn a chance, especially two big games. Bournemouth and Huddersfield, they won't know what he's about. So get him in and give him a chance.
It seems like most of the Boro fans and even Robbie, the Birmingham City fan, are all in agreement with you there. We're going with Balogun and Coburn up front. So we'll wait and see. That's obviously a conundrum for Chris Wilder to solve while he's out on the training field with the players this week and ahead of those 2 games. But just before we leave the Fulham match, Tony, I mean, the winning run had to end at some point. I mean, it was 8 league wins in a row we had before last Wednesday. And there was still some positives to take from that game. I thought, as most people said, we were genuinely unlucky not to take something from that game. And again, there was did anyone in terms of Boro players stand out for you on the night in terms of their performances?
Not personally. You know, I thought Dale done really well again against a quality centre forward. You just see some players, you know, they give their everything at the moment, every game. Paddy McNair. Crooks always looks up for every game at the moment, you know what I mean? So no one really stood out. It's the same player every week who's going to stand out for the Boro, and it's Johnny Howson, you know what I mean, James? You can't you can't look past him. He's a 9 out of 10. People say he's an 8 out of 10 every week. He's a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 player every week, every time he pulls on a Boro shirt, you know what I mean? So, yeah, for me, he's just clockwork. You just wind him up and let him go. And, you know, was it this time last season or earlier on this season under Warner? Get Howson out. His legs have gone. I think we've gone through the full squad this season, you know what I mean? And it went from Howson to Tav. I think you asked me after Christmas about players influencing the squad, and I said Tav. You know, I feel Tav's been, since Wilder's come in, I feel Tav's been a different player the minute Wilder came in through the door. Yeah. You know what I mean? But now the fans are starting to recognise Tav as what he is. He's an intelligent, skillful footballer, and we'll be lucky to keep hold of him at the end of the season because the performances he's put in have been outstanding.
Yeah. Oliver Barker's in agreement with you with regards to Johnny Howson. He said he's aged like a fine wine. And just before we leave that match, Paul Nicholas, thanks for watching again, Paul. He said Fulham didn't beat us because they're better than us. We lost it because of one lapse of concentration and poor finishing again, but we deserve to take 3 points from that match. And James Boy is also saying there with regards to Tav, he is a different player, 100% now under Wilder. But, yes. Tony, we're going to have to move on to Saturday, unfortunately. And what post-match Chris Wilder described as one of Boro's poorest home performances of the season. Do you think in some ways that was due to a hangover from the Fulham game and maybe concerns over the fitness of certain players? Because to me, quite a few of those players looked a bit leggy and almost running on empty on Saturday.
Yeah. Like you say, they're playing what? Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, and we're at the start part of the season now where the legs are full of miles, you know what I mean, James? But it's when the tough get going this time. If you want to be there, if you want to be winning trophies, if you want to be winning promotion, you've got to be at it in April and May. And I thought the Barnsley game was a one-off. I thought the Sheffield United game, I thought we got that out of our system. But Saturday, I don't know, it was just absolutely dreadful. Mm-hmm. But we, like you say, we did create chances in the first half. We created gilt-edged, good chances for any decent striker to get on the end of. And once again, it was disappointing to see that ball just flashing between the goalposts, in front of the goalposts, and no one willing to get on the end of it. Yeah. He brought Riley McGree in to freshen things up in the midfield. He thought the ball was his. No one else was going to get it. You know what I mean? He had a couple of chances where he could have played someone in, but he brings something different. He played an absolutely fantastic through ball to Connolly in the first half. Connolly smashed it wide. But then after that, it just, I don't know, James. Crooks didn't look at it Saturday. Crooks looked a bit leggy and tired.
Yeah, David Olsen's made that point, Tony. He said that he's been looking tired recently. And I think, do you know what? I think he's not looked the same player in a way since the Man United Cup match. I think he's struggled a little bit. And David's mentioning there that maybe, is it because Matt Crooks feels though he's guaranteed a place at Piero's no longer available? Because he got injured just after that against QPR. Or do you think it is just tiredness, or he's just maybe gone a little bit off the boil?
I think he's just gone a bit off the boil. You know what I mean? Tiredness will come into it, but do we have a free week now, James, to get some...
Well, there's no game till Friday, so there's no game till Friday, and we're playing Friday, Monday this week.
Yeah, so hopefully you can give him a rest, and we'll get back on track Friday and Monday. So all's not lost. For me, all's not lost. But Saturday, you know, was was absolutely woeful. I just wish the weather had been like it was Wednesday on Saturday. Then you wouldn't have felt as bad leaving. You know what I mean?
I mean, a lot of people, and I know you mentioned earlier in the show about Isaiah Jones, he's missed the last 2 games, and that obviously plays a little bit into Matt Crooks, where he plays as well, in the relationship those two have built up playing on the right-hand side. But does it sort of concern you that Hull looked relatively comfortable, I thought, in that game at the weekend? They just sat back quite deeply and said, come on then, try and break us down. And to be honest, especially as you say in the second half, we never really looked like doing that, did we?
No, Hull came to the Riverside on Saturday. I think the home record's absolutely dreadful, but they came on Saturday. Their away form, I think that's 5 games now away from home in a row where they haven't conceded, James.
Right.
So they've come to the Riverside, obviously, with a game plan. They were wasting time from about the 5th minute. You know what I mean? Ingram was taking an age with everything he's done, but it's part and parcel of the game now, especially in the Championship. And like you say, there was just no lack. There was a lack of thought and lack of ideas how to break this team down.
Yeah.
And like you say, with an experienced manager like Wilder at the helm, I thought we'd have found a way through. And there wasn't a cat and else chance in my mind we were going to get beat on Saturday. You know what I mean? And it just, like you say, it's football, James, isn't it? You know what I mean? You batter Peterborough 4-0 away, then you get 2 home games, and you can't hit a barn door with a hammer. You know what I mean?
And that's the nature of the Championship, isn't it, Tony? We've been in there often enough now to know how it works, and these results happen, and these things happen. And who's to say in a week's time we could be looking back after what we've got on paper as 2 really difficult games with Bournemouth and Huddersfield, and we could be looking at we've got a return of 4 points, 6 points. You don't know, do you? It's just the Championship.
No, that suits us as well, doesn't it? Like you say, we go up against the top teams, and we seem to dig in. We seem to perform a lot better. So hopefully we can get Jones back. That's a sad thing, James. There's still a lot of mess left, with what Warnock done to that squad. We're struggling down the right-hand side. We've got Peltier, who's 36, playing on the right-hand side of our defence, when we've got a fit and able 20-year-old out on loan at Nottingham Forest, tearing the Championship to bits. And that's just purely because of his attitude. Look, he had an attitude at the Boro. So, don't tell me that he hasn't got the same attitude at Nottingham Forest. It's just how their manager's dealing with Jed Spence. Our manager didn't want to give him the time of the day at the time, and he let him go. The same as Coburn, the same as Lewis Wing. All the players who banged on his door and told him they weren't happy, he's shown them the door. And it's criminal now that Jed Spence is at a rival club pushing for promotion in the red of Nottingham Forest and not the red of Middlesbrough. That is totally criminal on the club's side and on our management side.
I mean, I think some people might come back, Tony, and say that Chris Wilder tried to get him to come back, didn't he, at Christmas? But I think Jed Spence made it clear he wanted to stay at Forest.
But wasn't it Chris? What I thought about that, James, was Chris Wilder was quite happy for him to stay at Nottingham Forest. What I was reading into, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, Ian Black's got in touch. He said the next 2 games are effectively playoffs for us. I mean, what do you make of the fact that maybe, this is a good point by Chris Eyre, that on Saturday we came up against a Hull side that sat in, but maybe the next 2 games will be more to our liking against Bournemouth and Huddersfield, who might come out and play a little bit, which will open things up for us. Do you think there's any mileage in that, Tony?
Bournemouth definitely will. Bournemouth will definitely come at us. And hopefully we've got Jones back. The pace of Jones, we can hit Bournemouth on the counter-attack. Bournemouth aren't going to sit there and let us go at them. How many goals has Solanke scored? Solanke's got something like 30-odd goals.
Yeah, he's in the high 20s, yeah.
You know what I mean? He's scoring for fun.
Yeah.
But Huddersfield, it's like you say, they're going to come to the Riverside and they're going to dig in as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be nice to get off to a good start against them. They're a really hard working team.
Yeah.
I thought that manager was a joke when he first went there. You know what I mean? But he's totally turned them around, and pretty much similar to what that mad Argentinian done at Leeds. You know what I mean? He was his number one, his number two for a while. You know what I mean? He's got Huddersfield working really hard. So
yeah, we'll get on to the Huddersfield game a little bit later in the show, Tony. But before we leave the Hull match, we've mentioned Matt Crooks. Now he's one booking away now from a 3-match ban, which is something to be concerned about. But also on Saturday, after half an hour, we lost Dale Fry. If we were to lose those two for any length of time in the running, how damaging would that be, Tony?
Like you say, you got Sol Bamba, quite capable to come in and take over from Dale, but obviously he hasn't got Dale's pace, he hasn't got Dale's recovery speed to get back and defend. So Dale Fry'd be a massive loss. And if we get Isaiah Jones back and then Crooks go missing, that's, like you say, the relationship Crooks and Jones have got. You can throw Dykesteel into that relationship as well, because them three just, it's a joy to watch when them three have got the ball and you don't know which way the pass is going to go, who's going to take it next, and the bamboozle defences. So, it'll be nice to have Jones back, but if we're going to lose Crooks, we haven't gained much then, really, James, have we?
Do you think that would be...
If Piero's fit again, like Dave Bentley's saying, it mightn't be such a big loss.
Yeah. I was just going to mention that point, so because it might be that his return to fitness might just come in the nick of time for us and be that little spark to get things going again at that end of the pitch.
But there was fans quite excited about McCree starting on Saturday. Do you know what I mean? So, is it a similar problem to what we had a couple of seasons ago, where we've got all these midfield players who are quite similar, and who plays, who starts, or can you fit them in together? You know what I mean, James?
Yeah. Right, we'll have to get this out into the open now with regards to Joe Lumley. We've kept off it for long enough, but obviously that was probably the big talking point from the game on Saturday. And I don't think anyone can argue with Chris Wilder's response after the game when he said he's protected him for long enough, but that was really indefensible on Saturday. On the other side of that, you've got to remember he's kept 14 clean sheets in the league this season. So do you think that buys him any more time between the sticks, or do you think there'll be a change in the keeper on Friday at Bournemouth, Tone?
When you looked at Wilder's response, which I thought it was the craziest game he'd had for us, the Peterborough game, it just seemed to be mistake after mistake. I'm not saying it's Russia blood in the Peterborough game where he came out the halfway line and won a tackle. He had every right, for me as a goalkeeper, to be in that position and to make that challenge, because the guy who he challenged was the last man. Where was our midfield? Where was our defence to prevent Lumley coming that far out to make that challenge? He was just unlucky enough. When he won the tackle, it felt to Marius. And he got a lot of stick for that. For me, that was good goalkeeping, and even that high up the pitch. But some of the mistakes he was making in the second half, where the ball was going out and he decided to put it back in. Thankfully, it was already out, for a corner. But, he's just... for me, it was entertaining against Peterborough, because I think we were winning 3 or 4-0 at the time. But on Saturday, I don't know, the lad... I think the lad slung across and it wasn't a shot. And I seen an old player run across the front of Lumley, whether that's distracted him, but he should be stopping that, James. He should be putting his cap on, something like that, coming into his box. Yeah. And, like you say, the Peterborough game, Wilder's cuddling him, giving him a pat on the head. And then on Saturday, he's criticising him. So I think he's stuck with him this long, James. Like you say, we've said on here before, he sees all 3 goalkeepers in training, and he's never felt confident enough to start with one of the others up until now. I think the last 7 games he's got it's no good twisting. He's got to stick with what he's got at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I know some of the viewers have mentioned there Sol Bryn possibly coming in at the weekend. Do you think that's fair to do that to Sol Bryn? Or some people might say, well, hang on, you've called him back from his loan spell. What's the point of calling him back if you're not going to use him? Or do you just think it's too much to ask him to go into a game, massive game on Friday at Bournemouth, 6 matches left in the season? What do you think? Do you think Wilder will stick with Lumley on Friday?
I'd like to think he'd stick, because if he brings the young kid in, Sol Bryn, and things don't work out for him, what's that going to do for the next 5 games? You know what I mean, James? And
yeah.
We went down that road with Warnock at the start of the season, where it was one keeper one week, one keeper the other week, and I like you say, I don't think he's got one fan who will back him 100% in that Riverside Joe Lumley. But for me, the way Wilder's been picking him, he's got to be the best that we've got, and he's got to keep going with him, James.
And the thing is, Tony, I think I'll credit the lad for the amount of self-confidence he's got in himself, because he's got to be able to hear everything that's going on in the crowd and stuff like that. And I did pick up, there was a few boos after the goal on Saturday when the ball was going near him. And whatever you think of his performances and what he's doing, that's not helpful in the slightest, is it?
No, and I have to admit I'm guilty of that myself. I sit quite near the goal, be it in the south stand. So Joe gets a bit off the south stand as well as myself, And I ask him every half time when he comes running up, please, Joe, don't F about. Yeah. Just keep a clean sheet. But he's one of them, isn't he? He's come on a free transfer. Well, what do we expect? You know what I mean? He was QPR's number 2 or number 3. He never came with a glowing reference. So, a CV as long as your arm. He's what he is. He's a reserve goalkeeper who's managed to, at the end of the day, like you said, James, keep 14 clean sheets this season. Someone said there he's cost us 8 points. But how many points has he won for us? Do you know what I mean, James? So does it level itself out?
Yeah, we will see in the remaining games. Certainly see on Friday who Chris Wilder goes with in goal. Gareth Jones has been in touch. He said, I hope Gibson's got deep pockets, dropping clangers at the back and not taking our chances. We need to spend big to get things right. So it's obviously with regards to the summer and what's going to happen in the summer transfer window. And Dave Richardson again's got in touch and he said, I think confidence is a huge issue. I've seen Lumley looking into the crowd at times when they've got something to say. He should be watching the game, man.
He was joining in with the singing on last Wednesday night against Fulham. There was a player down injured, and he's joining in with the singing in the south stand. You know what I mean? And yeah, he's entertaining, and like you say, he must have thick skin because he gets some grief. And I was just laughing my head off when he sat round singing "Follow, follow, follow your goalkeeper."
Yeah, just follow the ball. That would be helpful. Yeah. But never mind, that's gone Saturday now. Before we look at the 2 matches that are coming up, Tony, in the space of a week, we've dropped from 5th to 8th. Can we still make the top 6, though, in your opinion, Tony, before we look at those 2 matches? And there's a game tonight, Huddersfield Luton, which is 2 of the teams that are above us.
Yeah.
In terms of us getting in the top 6, what do you want in terms of a result from that match tonight? And who are the 2 teams that we're going to overhaul to get in the top 6?
I don't know. Forest are absolutely flying, aren't they? But we've had Luton in 3rd place. We've had Forest in 3rd place. We've had Huddersfield in 3rd place. The top 2, Bournemouth have had a really bad spell, and they're still in the top 2. Yeah. But it's the 4 places below them. It could be what. You've got Coventry now beating Fulham 3-1 yesterday. They're 6 points off the playoffs. So it's exciting, James. It's anybody's for me. The form Forest are in. You can't say, James, because Forest are in the same position now as what Luton and Huddersfield were, and they hit the wall and they've dropped. So Personally,
my personal opinion, Tony, I'll let you obviously answer it the same. I think whoever loses tonight, you've got to target them and Blackburn, who are above us. And I think if we can finish above those two, I think we'll get 6th spot.
I think if we get 4 points out the next 2 games, like you say, we've played Fulham, top of the table, Hull, safe, or we should have beat, and then we've got another 2 games against teams in the top 6. If we can come away with 4 points against these 2 teams, that's got to set us up then to push for a playoff place, James.
Yeah.
And these 2 games now, it's getting the nitty gritty. It's Easter, and you usually know the ups and downs by Easter. If we're in the top 6 after these 2 games, I think we'll make the playoffs.
Damon LaRoche has got in touch. He said, I'd want to draw out of tonight's game, but we can still make it. Just need to have our heads screwed on and knuckled down. So, yeah, that game kicks off in around about half an hour's time. Huddersfield v Luton tonight, which will have a huge impact on the top 6 picture. But the Easter weekend as a whole, it's always a pivotal weekend in the football season. Make and break for lots of sides. And it's no different with the Boro this year. Long trip down to the south coast on Friday to face Scott Parker's Bournemouth. Does that game fill you full of dread, Tony, or do you think, in a way, this is an ideal match for the Boro?
It's an ideal match for the Boro, but I don't think I'm trying to think, of times that we've done well down there recently, you know what I mean? And I can't think of any time when we have, you know what I mean? I don't know whether it's the travel, whether it's the South Coast sea air that doesn't freaking agree with us, but it's a massive game. They've struggled. They've dropped points when they should have won points, pretty much similar to us. So it's doable on Saturday. Definitely doable. Hopefully Dale's fit and he can keep an eye on Solanke. But they're like Fulham. They've got some class players.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but on the other team sheet, we've got some class players as well, James, and they've got to perform.
Yeah.
They've got to perform. We can't keep looking at Johnny Howson and calling him out as man of the match at the end of every game. Some of the others have to step up to the plate now. Hopefully we can get Tav back in the middle of the park, because he was out there on the right when he's only got a left foot. That's why players weren't gambling getting into the box when Tav was on the ball, knowing that he was going to cut back inside on his left foot. Mm-hmm. So get Tav back in the middle of the park, get Jones back, Dale's fit, and I think we've got as good a chance as any, James. We just have to keep them quiet for a while, and then build into the game. Get Dykesteel and McNair overlapping again. You know what I mean? Which didn't happen quite as often on Saturdays as I'd liked it to.
Yeah, David Olsen's very confident and think we'll win against Bournemouth. Paul Jones has said we need Jones back in the starting lineup, so he gives us a bit of extra impetus going forward and putting that opposition on the back foot. And Paul Nicholas has said since Karanka we've conceded 3 or more every time we've gone to Bournemouth away. It must be due to change. And hopefully it does change, Paul, because I can't see you scoring 4 down there on Friday. But
I knew it was bad, but I didn't expect it to be that bad.
And before we started talking about the Bournemouth game, there was 1 or 2 people saying playoffs have gone now. And as you said, Tony, we're only 3 points behind with a game in hand. And Chris Sykes makes a great point. And he said, let's be honest, if someone had told us at the start of the season, at this time of the year, we'd be 7th, fighting for promotion, we'd have took it. So let's just enjoy it. And not just at the start of the season. I think when Chris Wilder took over in November, if someone had said to you, with 6 games to go, you're 3 points off the playoffs with a game in hand, I think we'd have snapped anyone's hands off for that, wouldn't we?
When Chris Wilder come in, everybody, not one Boro fan was talking about promotions.
Yeah.
Or playoffs. Boro fans were talking of, right, let's consolidate again.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we're safe this season and then move on next. So everything up to now has been a bonus under Wilder.
Yeah.
I think Chris Wilder's come in thinking he can make a push with this team. You know what I mean? I think that's why Gibson went with him, because I think Chris Wilder genuinely thinks his squad's good enough to get the playoffs and, to get us up. So, but I seen a comment earlier on, James, that if Forest had had Cooper from the start of the season, they'd have been in the top 2. Now, if we'd have, you can say similar, because when we beat Forest down there, they were absolutely woeful.
Yeah.
And they changed their manager earlier than us. If we'd have done the same, I think we'd have been in a similar position.
Yeah.
And these 1-0 defeats at home would have been just a blip, because we'd have been in a lot stronger position ourselves if we'd have started with Wilder.
Definitely. No, I agree, Tony, 100%. I mean, in terms of expectations as well, with Bournemouth, there's high expectations on them. They came down out of the Premier League, not last season, but the year before. They got beaten in the playoffs by Brentford last year. So there's a big expectation on them to make the top 2 this year. And I think Forest play Luton before we play Bournemouth on Friday. So their lead in terms of second to third could be cut down to 3 points. Do you think that'll put any more pressure on Bournemouth for that game against us?
Definitely, absolutely, definitely. Looking over the shoulders, James, as a Boro fan, we know what it's like with promotions and relegations. And once you're in them top 2 places, you know for a fact them players are starting to stiffen up and looking over the shoulders to what's coming from behind them. And it psychologically, I think it affects all of them. It affects the players like it affects us. You know what I mean, James? Because they know what's at stake. They know what's at stake for them. Do they want to be Premiership footballers? Do they want that different badge on the sleeve, or do they want to stay? The full career in the Championship. So it's up to them. It's up to them on Saturday to prove that they really want to get Boro out of this league. And the only way we're going to do it this season's in the playoffs. So hopefully we can do it that way, James.
So go on then, Tony. What's your prediction for the game down at Bournemouth on Friday? What's your score prediction, mate?
What he's just said, Bournemouth will beat us 3-0. No, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take, it's not very often I do it, I'm going to take a 1-1 draw, James.
Right. Yeah. And I think, Tony, most people would be very happy with that result if we came away from there with a point on Friday.
Definitely. It stops the rot. You know what I mean? And it gets us on the board, gets us moving again, James.
And in fairness, I know we've just lost 2 games at home, but our previous 3 away games, we've picked up 7 points. A draw at Millwall, 1 at Birmingham, 1 at Peterborough. So away form, after being a concern for such a long time, has picked up recently. Yeah,
like you say, it's our away form that's, got us pushing for the playoffs at the moment. So hopefully that continues down at Bournemouth, James.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of optimism amongst Boro fans. There's not many taking the home side. There's quite a lot of draws in there. And the odd away win there. Dave Richardson's gone 1-0 Boro. A 0-0. I'd be more than happy with a 0-0 right now. But
Dave Richardson's like me. We'd have the League One in December with Dave's predictions. You know what I mean?
Well, that game on Friday is just the first of an Easter doubleheader, which concludes on Monday. With a massive game at the Riverside as Boro take on Huddersfield Town. And we mentioned earlier in the show about Carlos Corberán, the manager there at Huddersfield. How much has their progress surprised you this season and how well they've done, Tony?
Unbelievable, James. Like you say, I thought he was a joke when he went. Was it last season he went or the season before? As he had a couple of seasons with these lads, but
I think he took over last season because the Cowley brothers were there, weren't they?
That's right. Yeah, he's got them.
Yeah,
he's got them totally believing in his philosophy. And when you watch him on the touchline, if you can't perform for a manager who's given as much as what you are from the touchline, you know what I mean. And he's totally turned them round, James. Absolutely, the belief he's put into them is unreal. And yeah, I'm still shocked. I'm still shocked where they are in the league after last season. And like you say, but I think they're going to come to the Riverside and they're just going to dig in. I don't think they're going to try and come to the Riverside and push us back. I think they're going to try to counter-attack us. You've got Oggy coming back to the Boro, you know what I mean? I think he was injured earlier on this season, so he didn't play against us. But they're a team I feel we always do well against, so I'm hoping we beat them next Monday like everybody else is. Yeah. But it's not going to be easy. Every game's going to be a massive challenge now.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Wilder's first victory as Boro manager came at Huddersfield in the corresponding fixture. And we won 2-1 that day, but the result, I think the scoreline didn't emphasise how much better Boro were than Huddersfield on that day. I think we won the game relatively comfortably. I know they scored at the very end of the game in injury time, but with Boro losing the last 2 at home, it's also a big game. It's on the back of a long trip back from Bournemouth, just over 48 hours earlier. It's going to be another tricky match, isn't it, Tone?
Yeah, and it's an 12:30 kickoff as well.
Yeah.
So that's even less recovery time. Like you say, if these players want to be playing in big games, playing in playoff semi-finals and playoff finals, they've got to, like you say, they've got to get their heads up and they've got to start performing at the Riverside, which they made a fortress for a few months. Yeah, the defeat at home to Fulham was acceptable, but to lose 1-0 to Hull, it's got to be acceptable because it happened. But as a fan, it's unacceptable. You know what I mean? We should be putting teams like that to the sword. But I've been making that statement since the early 70s that we should be putting bottom of the league to the sword and then beating top of the league. So it's just so, like you say, it's just so exciting this part of the season when you're involved, James.
Yeah. And I mean, as always, with holiday fixtures at the Riverside, a big crowd's expected on Monday for Huddersfield's visit. It's vital that the fans do their bit, and they have this season, both home and away. But it's vital for that game on Monday. Whatever happens on Friday at Bournemouth, I still personally think if we get one win from those 2 games, 4 points or more, will be magnificent. But I think if we have to win one of the 2 games, so whatever happens on Friday, the fans have just got to back them to the hilt next Monday, haven't they?
Like you say, no matter who's in goal, no matter who's playing up front, the atmosphere at Tottenham, the atmosphere against Chelsea, when we were 2-0 down against Chelsea and the atmosphere just went to another level amongst the Boro fans, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So let's just get behind them. If Lumley drops a clanger, we've got to stop booing our own players, no matter what type of game they're having. You know what I mean? And it's something that's gone on for a few years now. Well, it happens at every club. They've all got it. Even Gareth Bale got frigging booed off the Real Madrid fans, and how many European Cups has he won them? You know what I mean? So let's just get behind them and let's have just 7 games. I forget how many home games we've got left. It's not many, and let's just get behind the lads.
3 home, 3 away now, Tony.
Yeah, let's just get behind them, and any position is a bonus as long as we haven't been relegated. We were struggling under Warnock. Wilder's come in, totally turned us round, took us on this journey where, not one of the Boro fans can say that they were expecting to be fighting for a playoff place when Wilder first come in. So the atmosphere in Riverside at the moment has totally changed from the last 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. It's, there's no mourning, there's no whinging. People are talking about the game leaving the ground where when Pulis was here, if you won 1-0 at the Riverside, you were still going home feeling you'd been beat 3-0. There was absolutely nothing behind Pulis's 1-0 wins, you know what I mean? But Wilder's brought the belief.
Yeah, I agree, Tony. I mean, I think this season has far exceeded expectations already, even if we don't make the playoffs. From where we were, I don't think, and this is with the greatest respect to Neil Warnock, I don't think we'd have had the type of season that we've had if he was still here. And that's not knocking him in any sort of way, but I don't think we'd be challenging us near to the playoffs with Neil Warnock in charge. I don't think we'd have had the nights against Man United and Tottenham. And for the first time in a number of years, I think Boro fans are genuinely optimistic about the future. So if it doesn't happen this season and we don't make the playoffs, I'm still optimistic about next season. Yeah. And sometimes that's blind faith, but I don't think it is now.
We've had people coming on here as early as January, forget the playoffs. You can forget the playoffs now. You can forget. And you go on social media and there's fans still saying you can forget the playoffs. Like you say, genuine fans, that the playoffs is a massive bonus this season, James. If we reach them playoffs, they're a massive bonus.
Yeah.
And like you say, I'd say the majority of people who've renewed already are just hoping and praying that they've renewed and have got a Premier League season ticket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, James?
Fantastic for the club if we get to the Premier League, Tony. It is, but if it's not the worst league in the world to be in the Championship either, is it?
No, definitely not. And yeah, the quality of players has dropped. You don't seem to be getting as many big players dropping back into the Championship as what you used to. But some of the football this year played by Boro and teams that's come to the Riverside, like Coventry's, teams like that, has been top standard. You know what I mean, James? The level's improving so much.
Definitely. Well, we've got 6 league games to go, Tony. On the past 6 games, current form, all of those sides are all in the top 9 of the form table at the moment. So we've got a toughish run in, but how many points do you think we need to get from those 6 games to make the playoffs? What would your estimation be of how many points we need?
I think you asked me a few weeks ago. I think there was still 28 points up for grabs, and I said 21.
Yeah.
So God, I think we were on the way to that till these last 2 games. You know what, James? If you're selfish and you're pig-headed and you're a Boro fan, you've got to say all 18 points, which you're not going to get. But I'd still say we can afford out of them 18. I think if we drop more than 4 points, I don't think we'll make the playoffs.
Okay, mate. So you think probably need 14 points?
So yeah, like you say, with 3 points off, with a game in hand, if you drop 4 points and you don't make now up, that's 7 points. So I can't see us 4 points, another loss and a draw. And all the other games for me have to be wins.
Right. I personally think if we were to win 4 of our last 6, which then means probably winning all 3 at home, which is no gimme because they're 3 tough home games, and winning 1 away, and the ways are all tough as well. But I honestly think, my personal opinion, if we get 12 points from these 6 games, I think that'll get us in. I think. So,
like you say, teams have done. Like you say, teams have done strange things. You go on a run now. Everyone else around us, we've seen quite consistent. We've been up there pretty much since Christmas, January time, in the top 10 with Wilder, and all the other teams around us have managed to strap 6, 7 games in a row where they've won to get them up there with us. And we haven't had that run yet where we've had 4 or 5 wins, on the trot. So hopefully it's our turn now, James. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where we can string some wins together.
Yeah. Ian Black makes a good point as well, and there's a heck of a lot of fixtures. I know we've got to play Bournemouth, Huddersfield, but there's some absolutely massive games at the top of the table. I know Bournemouth play Forest. Luton have got Huddersfield. They've got Fulham. Sheffield United have got QPR. So a lot of teams are playing each other and other sides in and around them. So teams are going to drop points. So you got us down for a point at Bournemouth, which I think would be a fantastic result, Tony. What are we going to back that up with on Monday against Huddersfield at the Riverside?
Well, like you say, Wilder's going to sit him down, and he knows for a fact we can't come away with anything less than 3 points. Bank holiday Monday at home against, one of our nearest rivals, Huddersfield. Fantastic atmosphere. You're on the telly. This squad's enjoyed being on the telly in front of a big crowd and a fantastic atmosphere. So hopefully, bank holiday Monday, we can come away with 3 points, and we've beat Huddersfield 3-1.
Fingers crossed. That'd be fantastic. That, Tony.
Yeah.
Nigel Maltby said that run starts on Friday, Guesty. And Boro fans, it hasn't been the week we hoped for the last 7 days, but keep the faith. This could be our week this week, and hopefully next Monday night when we're back on the show, we'll be looking at back on a couple of profitable results for the Boro, and maybe we're back in the top 6. Tony, thanks very much for joining us on the show tonight. It's been great to have you on again, mate.
No worries, James. I enjoyed it.
And many thanks to everybody out there for watching and all your contributions. Been fantastic as always, Boro fans. As I said, we will be back next Monday night. I know the game's on Monday, but we're going to have a show round about 6:00, 6:30 Monday night. They can drag us out the pub afterwards to put the show on. we've been celebrating so yeah, but we will be back next Monday night to have the feedback from the games against Bournemouth and Huddersfield, as well as looking ahead to the away trip to Swansea at the following weekend. But until then, from myself and Tony and everyone at Boro Fan TV, have a good week, good night, and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.